Oh my God. Oh, welcome to our
Hello.
cleansing today. Thank you for joining us. Um, for those that have not met, we haven't met, I am Ramsay Tom. My students call me Kumu. My parents call me son. My daughter calls me dad. And my wife, she called me whenever she wanted to. I'm listening for her. But we could just call me Ram. Today's special cleansing is for many things, stimulated by much of what's going on in our world today. And of course, with a lot of the things that are coming up in this coming week, especially in our nation's capital. But more so, just not just there, but here in Hawaii, all of the states, but in our world as we enter into 2021 and all the different things that we've been experiencing in 2020. So to a certain degree, it's not just a special cleansing for the day or for the week, but really for all of us to come together and find some balance, harmony, and peace, if that we could, as we continue moving forward. But I will share some thoughts with you as we prepare for this cleansing. For those of you that are come to the cleansing today because you received an invite but have not participated or gone through the Ho'oponopono process as it was taught by Auntie Morna, Nalamaku Simeona, I'm going to ask you to bear with us because this is not a class, and some of the things that we may be talking about may be unfamiliar, especially when we do the cleansing. And when we get to that point, I'll provide some general instructions, but I'm going to ask you to have some faith and just trust in the process that we'll be running through today. So that would be Auntie Morna Nalamaku Simeona, who's a kahuna la'au lapa'au and kahuna ho'oponopono. And so she is the kupuna or Olohe that shared this process with me and so many others in the world. And I have the good fortune and kuleana of continuing to share that process today. And so when it comes to opportunities like this, especially when I start getting calls from different places and different quarters where people are asking about not only the process, but what can we do now with the process, I feel that this is a good opportunity for us to do it together. What we've learned is that whenever we do the process together as a group, there is a lot of movement and some wonderful things can happen. And so I thank all of you for joining us today and participating in this process as we go through it. For those that don't know, this is Auntie Morna Nalamaku Simeona. She is the kahuna la'au that I just mentioned to you. And she made her transition back in 1992. But prior to that, she was doing a lot of spiritual work, karmic work, if you would, which included working on large barriers, large obstacles in her lives, which is what Ho'oponopono, for those who have participated, is really all about. And during this time, she was spending some time in Poland, in Russia, where she was working diligently on removing the barriers and obstacles, the memories that had produced what we know in the physical world as the Berlin Wall. And as some of you may recall, at that time, we had a president, and the president, his name was Reagan, and he had asked the leaders of the Soviet Union to bring down that wall. That was in the physical, but Auntie Morna was working on it in the spiritual. And shortly after her arrival in Poland, we began to see some wonderful things occur, including the wall coming down. I start there because I want to emphasize the importance of what Auntie Morna was teaching us, is that it's not so much the physical things that we see, those are manifesting usually what's in us, but it's what's inside of us. And her message has always been that this is an inside job. So though we may be coming together because of our responses, our reactions to the things we're seeing in the world around us, as Auntie Morna would say, if you see the splinter in someone else's eye, the log is in your own. And this is really a reflection that says what we're seeing outside of us is really a reflection of what's going on inside of us, not just individually, but collectively. So consequently, coming together to do a cleansing like this collectively is an important step. So thank you for being here. I'll tell you more about the image next to Auntie Morna, which is the Lady of Freedom, which is really what stimulated some of this need to have this conversation today. But before I start, I see that we have more people joining us and most people are on board now. So I'd like to open, as we always do with our Ho'oponopono sessions and our gathering, with Pule. And for those of you unfamiliar with that term, Pule is like an invocation, a prayer, a request, an honor, an acknowledgement.
Un abrazo y disfruta de la película, me parece muy linda.
So, oh, thank you for reminding me. I'm going to ask everyone to please mute your mics in the meantime. There will be a time when I'll ask for questions, and if you have any questions in the meantime, you can put them in the chat box. My kako'o and daughter, Kaleo Nahe, is monitoring, and she will help keep track of all those things. All right, thank you so much. All right, so let's Pule Kako open with this this prayer. For those of you who are in the room, please just find a place that's comfortable for yourself. Set everything aside. Just take a moment to be silent. Find that place within you where you can find that place to listen, to hear, to see, without looking or without listening. Epule Kako. I come forth from the void into light. I am the breath that nurtures life. I am the emptiness, that hollowness beyond all consciousness. The I, the id, the all. I draw my bow of rainbows across the waters, the continuum, the mind with matter. I am the incoming and outgoing breath, the invisible, untouchable breeze, the undefinable atom of creation. I am the I. E puoma iau mai ka poila ka malama lama, o au no ka ha ka maule ola, o au no ka poho ke ka ele moa ho au ni kia pau, ka I ke kino iho na mea pau. Ka e au I kubi o a noi noi mawaho no ka ia pau. Ka ho mau mau o manao a mina mea pau. O au no ka ho a me ka ha he huna ka makane nahe nahe. Ka hua huna o komulipa. O au no ka I. A mama ua noa, a mama ua noa, a mama ua noa. Thank you. And we call that the I am the I prayer. And again, another gift from Auntie Morna to all of us, and asks us to come together to unify our minds, bodies, and spirits. For this is the purpose in the process of Ho'oponopono, especially in times when we are pono'ole, ole pono, when we are disconnected. And certainly we might say that we are living in the time when many of us have become disconnected, or we're experiencing this disconnection from one another, from our families, from our places, but perhaps more importantly from ourselves. And the great creator, the great healer, the great mediator, divinity. And so this cleansing today is really about allowing us to reconnect, to find that place of pono, that place of unity of mind, body, and spirit. As we say in this pule, e holuko no no ke kino ame kauhane, e malamba pono ka manao ke ola ke kino, e ka manawa apauloa. Aloha, aloha, aloha. You know, those words we say, unify mind, body, and spirit, to nurture and care for that relationship through all time. Not just now, but while we can leave this little space of ours, because we're all connected. And this is about reconnecting.
Aqui eu recebi acabei de receber convite do meu professor de Ho'oponopono para encontro de
I wish I could mute everybody. Kaleonai, can you mute everyone, please?
Yes, let me check into that right now.
Let me see if I can do that on my side. Apparently not. All right, we'll continue. So again, please ask everyone to please mute yourself so that we don't interrupt one another during the session. So as many of you know, last week we had some activity going on in Washington, D.C. And over the last several years, leading up to the election of the President of the United States, we've experienced a lot of tension. And in that tension, it evolved and it's manifested itself in many different ways. Now, regardless of where each of us may fall or choose to land, I'd like to suggest, as Auntie Morna would say, what we were seeing outside in the physical space is really a reflection of what's going on within us. So however we're responding, however we're reacting to what we experienced last week, it isn't about that as much as it is about what's inside of us and what we were moved to react to. So as I was watching and experiencing what all of us were experiencing, the events that followed in the next few days included some images, and not just images of the events that took place on that particular day at the Capitol, but the follow-up. And one of those images captured the Lady of Freedom, the statue, which is located in the Visitor Center. And captured in this picture were the National Guardsmen and women who were sleeping on the floor below Lady Freedom. And I found it ironic or interesting. And my question that rose in my mind was, who's looking out for who? The Lady of Freedom overlooked all of these men and women who are there to guard, to kia'i, as we say in Hawaii. And yet, here the Lady of Freedom was sitting or standing above them, overlooking them. And I found this to be a very interesting juxtaposition, this concept of Lady of Freedom. For those of you who don't know anything about the Lady of Freedom, I invite you, there's some wonderful references online, but if you're interested, please email me and I'll share those with you. So the Lady of Freedom and this picture with Auntie Morna next to her, the reason I'm saying that is because back in the early and mid 80s, when I first was able to learn and study with Auntie Morna, she asked me and a few others to participate in an effort to free the Lady of Freedom. What does that mean? Well, Auntie Morna was in Washington, D.C. for some other work once, and while she was there, she heard a voice and she saw an image. And that image happened to be the Lady of Freedom. She didn't know it at the time. In fact, when she was asked, "Do you know who I am?" Auntie Morna's response was, "Are you Pocahontas?" But instead, she quickly learned that the lady, the spirit of the Lady of Freedom, asked Auntie Morna clearly, she said, "I need your assistance, for I have been imprisoned. And if freedom is going to prevail over these lands, over this planet, this world, this earth, I need your assistance to free me from my prison." In 1963, the Lady of Freedom had been imprisoned by the Smithsonian Institute. And I use that word only because she was cut into several pieces, this plaster model you see on the side of Auntie Morna. And she was placed in crates and stuck away in storage in Washington, D.C. And it was between then and 1989 that Auntie Morna had this experience. And in the mid-'80s is when she asked me to participate and help. And I eventually took on the role as administrator for the Lady of the Freedom Project, which was to free this Lady of Freedom. The history of the Lady of Freedom goes all the way back to the Civil War, when the Capitol was being completed. And the plaster model, which then came and became the statue, the plaster model was the mold for this piece. This is Lady Freedom, the statue, the bronze statue that stands on the Capitol. Around that time, 1989, I got engaged in communicating with the architect of the Capitol at Auntie Morna's request in order for us to replace or to have the Lady of Freedom plaster model that you saw restored to a place where people could see her, because very few people could see the statue on the Capitol. So during that time, they actually brought the statue down for cleaning, one of the first times in a long time, and so that she could be seen. But the real essence of the statue was this plaster model. So in the effort to talk with and work with the architect of the Capitol, and through the assistance of Senator Daniel Akaka, we succeeded in getting the Lady of Freedom out. And in 1993, this was restored, and she was placed in a location where people could see her, as well as understand the story behind the Lady of Freedom, which again is a very fascinating story. One that was triggered when I saw this image the other day of the guardsmen lying at the feet of Lady Freedom. For in the teaching of Auntie Morna, Lady Freedom is the Unihipili, if anything, the subconscious, the soul of the United States. And in the exercise of freeing Freedom and placing her back, she then became much more than that. And she represents the freedom within each of us, within the world, and beyond. And so the experience that I had, and many of us who are part of this project are having or had when we saw these images, was to recognize that the work's not done, and that the Ho'oponopono process is something that continues. And what I'd like to share with you is what Auntie Morna would have shared with us. And I'm listening to her and the words, and she says, this is not about the R's or the D's. This is not about the right or the left, the up or the down. This is not about the politics. This is not about the men or the women. It is not about the Bidens. It's not about the Trumps. It is not about any of those things. What it is about is the karmic memory, the energy that had continued from the time of Abel and Cain, from Isaac and Ishmael, to every cleansing war that we on the planet have imposed upon ourselves. It is about the separation, the karmic energy and memory that continues. For though we had an election of millions of people, essentially the house is still divided. Auntie Morna would say, this is a separation. And what we are experiencing and seeing, despite the names, despite the actions, is really this deeper thing that continues to live within each and every one of us, which is this separation. The intention is to be whole, to be unified, not to divide or to fight. And regardless of where we may fall in our optics and politics, it is all a reflection of that deeper thing. And even in her own statement, the Queen of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani, she made the statement. She goes, on earth there is two, but in heaven there is only one. And that is to understand that aloha and peace and harmony comes with unity and harmony. So despite what we're seeing in imbalance, what we're really seeing is disharmony. But if you didn't think about it, for the numbers of people that participated in this so-called election, the House is probably more balanced than it's ever been. 7 million on one side, 7.4 million on the other. The House is almost in balance. They say 50-50, equal. So is it really about balance, or is it about something else? And Auntie Morna would always say, it's about harmony. How do we find harmony in that balance. For disharmony is the imbalance that we're experiencing. And the Lady of Freedom is reminding us of that. So today, our effort is to find that balance and harmony within us. I ask each of you to find it within yourselves as we do this cleansing. What is it that separates you? What is the karmic connection? What is that memory? What is that thing that continues to disconnect us from ourselves, from our communities, from one another, our families? What is that disconnection? The fact that we're doing this today on the day that we honor Martin Luther King, an individual who was trying to heal that disconnection. The fact that this Lady of Freedom, this discussion, this conversation goes back to the Civil War. There are some even on this call who would agree that some may believe that the Civil War never really ended, because it really wasn't about that. It was about the separation of man from God, the separation of man from earth, the separation of man from himself. And Auntie Morna's message about Ho'oponopono is that how do we reunify? How to become Pono, to be reconnected, mind, body, and spirit, to be as family, the inner family, so the external family can live in harmony. Now, nothing that I'm sharing with you is intended to say what we're seeing isn't real, that it's not happening, that there isn't these things, that there aren't these sides, but more so to say that this isn't about picking sides. This isn't about manifesting one side versus the other. This is going to that point in concept and thought that when the great teacher known as Jesus was asked by his followers, he said, when does this end? His response to his followers was simple. When the right becomes the left becomes the right. When the hands become the hand, and the feet becomes the foot. When the male becomes the female and the female becomes the male. When the two become the one. In essence, what he was saying is that when the separations end, when we become one, when we become singular, we become whole. And interesting enough, that is the key behind aloha. Aloha, the principle of being whole. To leave people and ourselves whole and not in one. And I'm finding that right now, many of us are looking at a deep hole, all in the effort to become whole. And so I'll close with this as we enter into the process. The focus is to be whole, to actually manifest that thing we call united states, to manifest within us that thing called pono, of mind, body, and spirit, to become one with the one mind, the one community, the one spirit. For this is the true battle that Auntie Morna would remind us. This is an inside job. Whatever's going on around us, it's still an inside job. And so before she left us in 1992, I'll share this last thought with you that she reminded us. She says, if you want to heal the world outside of you, whatever you see in the world outside of you, heal what's inside of you first. For you can't see what's outside unless the essence of that is inside. So for all of us on this call and all of those who are not, if we can join together internally to remove these barriers, these obstacles, these fears, these anxieties, these things that create the barriers and obstacles for our good and for the good of others, we will all be doing the work that the Lady of Freedom was asking us to do and Auntie Morna to do back in 1989, is to free freedom, to allow freedom to live within each of us and in our places, light or dark. So this is what brought us here today. And I ask each of you to share with me now in the process. For those of you that have joined the process before, I will be doing one of our higher level process today. It's And I'm just going to ask you to all to just set aside. And if you have anything you actually want to write down, something that you really want to cleanse with, now's a good time. You can write on a piece of paper, and you can just hold it in your mind or your heart. But I'd like you to think about this, the idea of how it is that we become whole. The spirit of aloha and the spirit of ho'oponopono is to make right, to put things into balance. So before I do the cleansing, let me say this. Please forgive me for whatever I have done, me and my ancestors, that have created a condition in your lives that brought you here today, that allows us to continue these disconnections. Please forgive us for whatever we've done in word, deed, or action, or inaction, that it impacted you and your ancestors in such a way that we find ourselves now sitting in this space together, to allow us to bring unity and harmony back. Please forgive us. In that same spirit of aloha and reciprocity, I and my ancestors forgive you and your ancestors for anything that you may have done, intentionally or unintentionally, to create the heva, the huki, the tension, the pain, the disconnects that I and my ancestors and our people have experienced through time. It is in this moment that we forgive you and your ancestors. And in that reciprocity of giving and receiving with the deepest spirit and sense of aloha, this is ho'oponopono, to make things right. And so we now enter the process, and I ask each of you to just silently go to that place, and I will start the process. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, there will be certain times when I will say things like the ha breathing process. The ha breathing process is basically inhaling for 7 counts, holding that breath for 7 counts, releasing it for 7 counts, and then holding it again for 7 counts. That's one round. We're going to do that 7 times. I'll repeat that when it comes to it. There will also be things such as colors or numbers. Just have faith that these colors are tools that Auntie Morna has brought in and has shared with us in the redoing and updating of the Ho'oponopono process that her kupuna, her ancestors, did. So that regardless of where we come from in the world, our backgrounds and our experiences, we can all enjoy and experience forgiveness, as well as give forgiveness. So in many ways, this is about forgiving ourselves as well as others, to find that unification, to release and to let go. And so as we go through this, there will be times when I say, if I, and you hear me pause, you just place your name in that space following the I. If I, and you just put your name, John, and I'll continue reading. In the breathing section, if you're continuing to breathe and you're doing your heart breathing, don't worry if I start, your unihupili, your inner self, will understand where we are. It'll pick it up, right? Let's see if there's anything else that I can think of that might throw you. I think that's it. So the way you'll know we're ending, you'll hear me say, we are set free and it is done. We are now in the divine creator's embrace. That'll be our closing statement. And if there are any questions, we might take them. All right? So let's begin. I'm going to ask everyone to just place your hands on your lap, if you would. Just find a comfortable spot. Close your eyes and, again, just be present. If you can, turn off any phones or anything that may distract you. In fact, I should probably do that myself. And our objective is to be present. Ready? Let's begin. This is the combined process of Ho'oponopono. Let's begin with the inner connection. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Child as one. My child, will you forgive me for all my errors in thoughts, words, deeds, and actions that I have accumulated and subjected you to over eons of time? As your mother today, I forgive you for all your errors, fears, resentments, insecurities, guilt, and frustrations. Come and hold my hand and reverently ask the Father, our Aumakua, to join and hold our hands as a family. As a unit of two, please ask the Father to join us and make three of us a unit of one. Let love flow from me to you and from us to the Father. Let the divine Creator embrace us in the circle of divine love. Shield and protect the Unihipili. Divine Creator, please shield my Unihipili in a soft, warm blue jumpsuit with a 7-inch abdominal band secured by 3 hooks and eyes on the left side with indigo shoes and gloves. Please surround my Unihipili with indigo lined with ice blue and pink and layer it 1,000,000 layers. Please place 200 million, 100,000 pillar of the peace of eye around my Unihipili. Breathing, bring in the manna. 7 rounds. Inhale for 7, hold for 7, exhale for 7, and hold for 7. Repeat that 7 times. Opening prayer. I am the I. I come forth from the void into light. I am the breath that nurtures life. I am that emptiness, that hollowness beyond all consciousness. The I, the id, the all. I draw my bow of rainbows across the waters, the continuum of mind with matters. I am the incoming and outgoing of breath, the invisible, untouchable breeze, the undefinable atom of creation. I am the I. Puamayo mai kapula kamala malama. Uau no kaha kamaule ol. Uau no kapo ke ka ele moaho au ni kia pau. Kai ke kino iho na mea pau. Ka e au I kupio a nui moaho au no kai a pau. Ka o mau o manao a mena mea pau. Uau no ka ho a me ka a. He una ka makani nahi nai. Ka hua una o kumulipo. Uau no ka I. Cleansing. Aura cleansing. Let divine intelligence manifest good health in all of my registry, my respiratory, circulatory, excretory, and auric systems. Let all imbalances be transmuted and put in their right time and place to bring greater supply, abundance, health, and spiritual cleansing. Let all imbalances be transmuted to their right time. My evolvement and peace of mind have no limitations. And it is done. Repentance. repentance prayer. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Child is one. If I, my family, relatives, and ancestors have offended you in thoughts, words, deeds, and actions from the beginning of our creation to the present, please forgive us. Cleanse, purify, release, sever, and cut all the unwanted energies and vibrations that we have created, accumulated, and or accepted from the beginning of our creation to the present. Please transmute all the negative, unwanted energies to pure light. We are set free, and it is done. Combine Ho'oponopono. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Child is one. I, my family, relatives, and ancestors wish to do Ho'oponopono with all of the things in our minds and our hearts that require us to heal, whatever that is. Introspect, feel, sense, and think. Bring those things forth. We ask to do Ho'oponopono with his, her families, their relatives, ancestors, thoughts, words, deeds, and actions from the beginning of our creation to the present. Humbly, 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 we ask you all for the forgiveness for all our errors, our fears, resentments, guilt, anger, violence, offenses, blocks, attachments, situations and circumstances that we have created, accumulated, and accepted from the beginning of our creation to the present. Cleanse, purify, and transmute all these unwanted, negative, painful, and traumatic memories, blocks, and energies to pure light. Fill the spaces these unwanted energies occupied with divine light. If there are any earthbound spirits and or negative vibrations within, on, or around the premises, the persons, objects, party or parties with whom process is being done, or if the following persons, anyone in the universe who is permitted to go at this time, if they are earthbound, we humbly ask forgiveness on their behalf and ask that they be cleansed, purified, and released to the path of purity. No longer will they be earthbound. We release them to the path of light as they release us. If my soul has wandered to the four corners of the universe, I command that it return to my body. If there are any entities in, around, above, or below me, I command that they leave, and I ask for their forgiveness if I have offended them. I ask that they be cleansed, purified, and released to the path of pure light. Let my soul be restored back to my body. I call upon my Aumakua to help, guide, and protect me. We are set free, and it is done. Release, cleanse, transmute. We cut all Akko cords from all involved in this case and mentally bathe ourselves from the top of our head to our toes with the following colors of indigo, emerald green, ice blue, white, all 7 times. Let divine intelligence approve the release and transmutation of all toxins and negative vibrations to pure light. Let it manifest harmony, love, wisdom, order, balance, perfect and right relationships, ideas, sources of wealth, sustenance, and energies. We humbly ask that we be surrounded with a gold band or circle, for we are set free, and it is done. Closing prayer. The peace of I. Peace be with you. The peace that is I, the peace that is I am. The peace for always, now and forever and evermore. The peace I give to you, my peace I leave with you. Not the world's peace, but only my peace. The peace of I. Kamaluhia o ka I, o kamaluhia no me oi ku maluhia paulo. Kamaluhia o ka I o au no kamaluhia. Kamaluhia no na apau. No ke awa mau lo aku. Paawi aku au I ku maluhia ia oi. Waiho aku au I ku maluhia me oi. Aole ka maluhia o ke au a ka kau maluhia wale no. Ka maluhia o ka I. Hard breathing, 7 rounds. Inhale for 7. Hold for 7. Exhale for 7. Hold for 7. Repeat 7 times. Acknowledgement. We acknowledge the divine creator, our inner family, the father, mother, and child, the divine forces of all the universes, the divine forces of the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdom. We acknowledge the Unihipili of rhythm, peace, freedom, and balance, the Lady of Freedom, the Unihipili of the United States, King Kamehameha Ekahi, the first, the Unihipili of Hawaii, the Unihipili of each nation, the Unihipili of the world, universes, and the cosmos. We would also like to acknowledge and thank Morna Simeona for the key that opens the door to freedom. May the I continually bless all involved in the Ho'oponopono process. For we are set free, and it is done. We are now in the divine creator's embrace. Amama'ua noa. All right. Thank you. So let me do this. I'm going to open up the chat. And it's already there if anyone has any questions. I think today was really more about listening, not so much asking. But if anyone does have a question, feel free to ask it now. We have a few minutes. Did anyone have anything particular? So what I'd like you to do is if you put it in the chat and I would call upon you, then we can open up your mic or you can open it up and then we can take the question. Just a few before we bid one another farewell for today. Have anything there? No, all good, all good. My guy, my guy. Nope. All right. So in the next few weeks, I'll be doing a couple of classes. You're all invited to participate. If you're interested, you're not on our mailing list now, please let Kaleo Nahi know. You received some information today. Should be sending that out shortly. And once again, it's really about becoming centered in self and a little less self-centered. And if we can find a way to find that inner peace within us, for once again, it's not just about balance, but it's about harmony. Peace is a direct reflection of harmony. And ironically, in a world where we have all these wonderful communication tools and gadgets, we have reached a time in our lives when we can communicate with people across the planet. And yet, many of us are still relying on the lowest form of communication to get our points across. And of course, that is violence. It's when we can find a way to communicate heart, mind, and spirit. So I close this thought with you today, at this time together. And Pilahi Paki, another kupuna, an elder who was one of my mentors, the one that pulled on this ear a lot. She would say that the seeds of thought are watered by the emotions of heart. And every time we express a word or create an action, those words, those thoughts, those ideas are manifested in the world, and we can't take them back. And so what she's telling us is that to guard our words, guard our thoughts, guard our emotions, for we manifest that in the world around us. And what we are seeing manifested around us is a reflection of those thoughts, those words, and those deeds. And so we've had an opportunity now to cleanse with some of those things. But let me do this. I see a question from Jared. How do you wake up? First thing. What are the last thing you do before you sleep, ritual-wise? Thank you for that question. Yeah, Jared. Well, interesting enough, before I retire, you do like a running checklist. If there was anyone that I may have done harm to today, please forgive me. And I ask that the forgiveness upon them. And if there's anyone that did harm to me, I ask that they be forgiven. The finding within me to get to that place. But more importantly, I also look into the future to my descendants and I ask them for forgiveness. What is it that I've done that may have created a situation for you? And I also look back to my ancestors and ask them for forgiveness, as well as forgive them for creating the condition that I am now living in. In the native mind, we talk about the 7 generations. 7 generations where we sit in the middle, the 4th generation. Because my great-grandmother was the first. My great-granddaughter will be the 7th. And as I sit in the middle, I can now hold myself accountable to my great-grandmother and to my great-granddaughter. So in cleansing this every day, and before you start your day, you also do the Ho'oponopono process. So that the Ho'ailona, the dreams, the things, when I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, I don't take to work with me. I don't take into the community. I recognize that whatever pilikia, whatever eha that I see in others, is really just them bringing it out in me. And always going back to that question, what is it about me that allowed me to see in you what bugs me about you? Asking yourself, what is it in me that I brought to this situation that allowed that sound, that image, that word, that person, that smell, that tactile thing to stimulate me to a position of anger, fear, anxiety? What is it about me? Because clearly the messengers around me are helping me to find and remove that pilikia, that memory. It is when we can come to that place to recognize that we can remove that from within us, that those messengers no longer need to be in our lives, that they can move on and go do other things. Because I have now gotten out of their way and they have gotten out of mine. This is Ho'oponopono. This is not about changing others as much as they change when we change. And so the question, Jared, is what do we do before we moy? Is to cleanse and to release and to let that go. And if you have not learned the process, please join us when we do the process, because that's what we want to do, share that with you. So if there's a ritual, that would be it. But it should go beyond ritual. Auntie Morna was very clear about that these things should not be ritual any more than breathing is a ritual. Yeah. Is it a ritual to wake up in the morning? Is it a ritual to breathe? Then so should be forgiving, and so should be releasing and letting go. It's not something I'm going to do my ritual thing now. I'm going to breathe now. I'm going to live now. The difference is learning to be rather than always trying to become. To be peace, to be Ho'oponopono, to be aloha. This is the message under which these kupuna, these elders, have tried to share with us. Ho'oponopono. I hope that helps answer that question. Let's see, one more question. I'll take one more. I'll read it out. From ECP, given the harm humanity has inflicted upon ourselves and papahonua, pelehonua, could the group begin a regular focus Ho'oponopono healing session for reharmonization and healing of Mother Earth? And humans are as an integral aspect within ecosystem, the dynamic mutual relationship with human beings rather than human-centered relationships. Yeah, funny, I just kind of mentioned that, yeah? The answer is yes, but it doesn't require us all to come together, although that's a powerful thing. As Auntie Morna said, it all starts with us. The we in me, my mind, my body, my spirit, my aumakua, my unihipili, and my uhane. We come together as one. And in that becoming of one, we become one with all. And so when we, each of us, do our Ho'oponopono, we connect to everyone else doing Ho'oponopono. We don't need to gather like this, although this is very powerful. This is still uhane. This is our conscious mind requiring this space. But when we have the faith and the trust in being able to be pono in our place, wherever we may be, we become connected. We become one. One with ourselves, one with divine, one with all. So the answer is yes, we can find the reharmonization of things when we find harmony in ourselves. This is what Auntie Morna would have taught us. In fact, the disservice is to try to explain all the stuff around us. Because even that requires our own ego, our own definitions. Auntie Morna said, there is only one. And to become with the one, you must become. You must go in. And the answer is when we become harmonized, mind, body, and spirit, aumakua uhane onihipili, when we become pono, things become pono. It's not that others change their eyes, but we change what they see. And when we change who we are, we change what we see. If I cannot put my hand on the pond to stop the ripples, sometimes I have to step back and just let the ripples go. As it is now in our country. For every time the hand of man tries to create calm and peace, we seem to create more pilikia. And Timorna says, step back, look in, clean the inside, outside will clean. All of us have the opportunity to do that, to reharmonize. Harmony is peace. So if you're feeling any discord of what's going on in our world around you, Ho'oponopono, come inside. It starts with us. Everything starts with us. So with that, we've come to the top of the hour. I want to honor everyone's time and the aloha you've shared with us today by being on this call, and ask you all to be well, to continue living in pono, or at least finding it, seeking it. Yeah. For this is what makes us all one, kanaka. Those that shimmer and shake and share aloha with ha. Ha, vai, I, the air, the water, and the spirit, expressed on the breath of life that comes from between our teeth. We call this aloha. So to everyone, wherever you are in the world, aloha oeho e malama pono. Be well. And reach out if you have any questions.